Good morning, everyone. It's Josh coming from this construction house I'm working on. And, I was just thinking of this saying that, how does it go? Necessity is the mother of invention. I think that's the right one. It's the one that stuck in my head anyway. But I was just thinking about that. I was like, is it? I mean, is necessity really the mother of invention? I mean, what have we invented that we need? And among that, the only few things that I can see that we really could utilize, that maybe we need, are things to help us with agriculture, things to help us to eat, inventing new materials for clothing, keep us warm so we can expand to other parts of the globe. Without the ability to preserve and store food, we never would have been able to go travel the way we did. Even in World War I think World War I was the first time that tin cans were introduced, canned food was introduced. And I know there were a lot of problems because they were using tin cans and lead cans at one time, but there's an invention that allowed man to pack and take things with him and travel to explore. So I was asking, just while thinking that, I'm just thinking, okay, is that a necessity, to travel? But I don't know. You have to consider humans and what humans are capable of and what our purpose is. And it goes back to, it sounds kind of like, I don't know, it's harder to explain, I guess. They say that, if necessity, what is necessity, right? Now, if humans are designed to be exploring creatures like we are, then perhaps that is a necessity. I don't know. That's one of the biggest questions, I think. Of all the big questions, is what do we really need? In what direction do we go? I gave up a long time ago trying to figure out where we come from, okay? This is like people dedicate their entire lives to trying to figure out how the universe created humanity, where we came from, how we started. I spent a lot of time researching that and trying to figure it out on my own, and I came to the conclusion that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where we came from. What matters is where we're going, and even that might not even matter, because some people believe that what really matters is where we are right now. But anybody who's even thought a little bit about it can realize that living in the now, while it's a great idea, it still leaves a lot open for interpretation as to how to handle the future and the past. In other words, I hear a lot of people who maybe some might call, quote, New Agers, who say, let's take Eckhart Tolle, for example. He speaks a lot about living in the now, and he has some great ideas. But judging by his dry character and personality, or lack of personality, I don't see living in the now as being beneficial. It's almost like some people struggle so hard to live in the now that they miss, what now becomes. Now becomes before, later. Or the present becomes the past and the future, right? And so if we're constantly living in the now with absolutely no regard for where we come from, where we go, or what our purpose is, then we're living like animals. And that's not something I take lightly. I've thought about it a lot, because I've really been trying to live in the moment for years now, at least a few years, and it's not easy, I'll catch myself at work sometimes and like thinking about getting ready to go home. Like I just want to go home, and then I get home and I'm just ready to do the next thing, whatever it might be, and it's like this constant brain, it's like brain food, trying to keep yourself thinking about what to do next. And I just tried to rid myself of that and realized that it tears you apart when you start to neglect purpose and past future. So anyway, I decided to embrace my past, the bad things that have happened to me in the past, rather than push them aside. And my dad died when I was 14 from cancer, and I watched him deteriorate in our house because he was living, staying in a hospital bed in our home. And one day I came home and he was gone, and they'd taken him to the hospital, and my family came back. My mom came back, and she was going to go back to the hospital. She told me the situation. He's not doing good. He's looking bad. He might not make it. Do you want to go see him with us? I said no. I chose to go skateboarding. And this could destroy a person. They might look back on themselves and feel so guilty, but I don't, because I understand why I did what I did. I was young. I was a kid. I can't handle death. And the last thing I want to do is see my father dead in a hospital bed, which I believe is what ended up happening. And I'm very fortunate that I got to see him alive, and even though he wasn't doing well. So anyway, I could look back on that and say, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this, and I don't, because I've never had regrets about that. And when I was in my 20s, I wrote a song called No Regrets. I think it was called No Regrets. Or no, it's called I Am Free. And the whole thing is, the first part of the song is, how did it go? Well, something about I don't dwell on things, I just forget. And it's about being free in your own mind to not regret the things you've done in the past. You can think about them and change the future, the way you act on those in the future, but what are you going to do? It's over. It's over, done, get over it, right? I made this little slideshow a while back, basically called Get Over It, and it was about, a bunch of little clips and pictures about just get on with it, get on with your life, live in the present, So I don't know what, I just find it a fascinating life to live, with all the different aspects of it, all the different types of people, and all the different what ifs. And I really think hard about the way people feel and what they believe. And I guess I could take Christianity, for example. Those who know my videos know that I am not a Christian, and I am opposed to Christianity as a form of belief, because it neglects to allow others their equal freedom. And the way I've always seen it is Christians look down on not all Christians. Now, don't get me wrong, I have some subs that are Christians that are good people, and they understand where I'm coming from. And I have some subs who have talked about Jesus in the past, but then I realized that they're not Christians at all. They just believe in Christ consciousness. There are many different varieties to this way of thinking. And so I guess what it is for Christianity for me, I've even given that the leeway. Like, for example, what I'm saying is that I've had conversations with Christians. They've given me evidence to their claim, and I've gone and I've looked it up and I've done my research, rather than just saying you're just an idiot Christian, you're a fool, you believe what you're told. And sometimes I will say those things if it's getting into a heated discussion, but I have put the time in. I have talked to Jesus. I have read part of the Bible as much as I can so far. I have made my effort to do my research rather than just shut it out and say, no, it's wrong. Because if I just say it's wrong, then I'm just like everyone else who says that everyone else is wrong. And the reason why I brought that up is because I think that we all owe it to ourselves and to others to do all of the homework we can to know why people feel so strongly the way they do. This means a little bit of history, a lot of history, a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of historical documentation so we can see what we've done and what we haven't done and where we've gone wrong. And most of all, the biggest question about all of this, as far as ways of living and belief systems, how does it work for the world? How does it work for everyone? Now, it shouldn't have to work for everyone only if they believe what you believe. And that's the hardest part I have to get past. Any system of belief should be open and acceptant to other beliefs as long as they're not harmful. And I guess one could spend a lifetime searching for that truth, and that's why I'm mentioning this, because I say that, I spent so long trying to figure out where we come from and where we're going, thereby missing the whole point. But at the same time, if you know where you come from, then you can know what not to do and what mistakes not to make. And after getting into philosophy a bit and hearing these debates that have been going on for hundreds of years, I mean, it's really easy for a person to step up and say, this is what's true, I think you're wrong, and this is the way we're supposed to live. You can go back and usually look up any of those philosophies in history and find out that there were people that dedicated their entire lives to it. There are 40-hour lectures on one particular subject where in the end, the philosopher, who may be a 50-year scholar who's been a teacher for 20, 30 years, still admits that he doesn't know, that the answer is still up in the air. But meanwhile, we've got, Joe Blow, who is on the internet typing away saying this is the answer and this is the way it is. It's really easy for a person to say this is how it is and there's no way around it when they don't have to take any criticism for it or explain or prove themselves. I've seen a couple of discussions with panels of people who are discussing Christianity with a Christian group, where they will actually have, a bunch of scientists get together with Christians and say, okay, well, this is what it says in the Bible. How do you explain this? And when the people are put on the spot, when they're really in a group like that, and they're trying to say, yes, Noah had an ark, and the earth flooded, and he loaded all the animals in, and they start saying this is literal, I mean, the people they just snicker. I mean, it makes the people look so silly. It doesn't matter how much they dress up or how fancy they look, or how much they may really truly believe, or how many people are behind them. The rest of the people snicker because they understand that they don't know the answers any more than this person does, but this person's claiming to be able to take everything literally and understand it. And what I'm saying is when it's put up against real critique, it just doesn't hold up, it doesn't hold water. And there's really no evidence that any belief system in the past that we've ever had has worked for everyone. It just hasn't happened, and that's why I've come to this conclusion that it's all about the now, but it's about learning everything you can to embrace the now for what it is, so tomorrow is a better time. Let me give you an example. Is sometimes I want to get it. Let's say I want to smoke a bowl, get stoned, right? When I was younger, I used to smoke pot all the time. I smoked pot in the morning, afternoon. Anytime I was awake, I was stoned. I don't smoke in the daytime anymore. I don't smoke in the morning. It's not that I don't want to, because I like being stoned, and it actually helps me to work for a while. But I don't do it because I know that in the long run, it'll take me more weed to get stoned later when I actually want to relax. It will take away from my motivation in the daytime. And it's the same thing with drinking. The reason I don't drink is because I know alcohol is bad for me, but at the same time, I know the way it makes me feel, and that's enough to keep me away from it. Anything that makes you feel shitty longer than it makes you feel good, it just doesn't make sense. So, what I'm saying is that you got to enjoy all these little things on the side, all the things that we're given. You can't put yourself into trap yourself into being completely cut out of all the exciting, fun things in life, But you can't let the fun things run your life, because they will. And that's how overdoses happen. And that's how people get into these crazy situations where they have run their bills up too high. They owe the government a bunch of money, and they owe everybody else in credit cards, and then they become miserable. And then it comes down to, sometimes, like what I said the other day about suicide. And the person ends up killing themselves over something that's so ridiculous, it's not even It's really important to the person, okay? But it doesn't mean that it's really important in the big picture. So, I'm really not interested in making videos very much anymore. I've been making a few, but I haven't really uploaded many. It must be a season thing, I'm through that cycle. But I still enjoy making them sometimes, so I will. And thanks to all of you people out there who have helped me to kind of open my eyes to different ways of thinking. And realized that the ego that I grew up with, just like all of you grew up with, it helped me to be stronger, it helped me to survive. And having an ego that I did helped me to build up enough understanding of who I was to not have to listen to what other people tell me about myself. And then you can leave that ego on the shelf. But never break away from who you are or yourself, you know. No matter what a person tells you, if a person says that you're too happy, no. Or you're not thinking it through, then maybe you need to think it through. But just when other people tell you is just what other people tell you. And what I've learned is that 80% of the 90% of the time when somebody tells you something, it's something they need to work on themselves, and that's why they point it out in you. This is why psychology is such a benefit to anybody who's interested in any of these things, the eccentric or religion or life in general, is to understand psychology. Because when you understand how the human mind works, it really, really helps. I mean, I've been listening to this lecture on argument and reason, and it's just fascinating. It's not about how to win an argument. That's not what the whole thing's about. It's about why do people argue, what's worth arguing about, and which arguments have taken place in the past over long periods of time, so we don't have to jump in and say, I just thought of this idea, when somebody else has already been through it. But don't believe what another person said. So it goes down that same road of you have to find it for yourself. And every one of us has to find everything for ourselves. It's kind of like people who say that there's no inventions, nothing left to invent. There was, I can't remember who it was, but a philosopher who killed himself because he said that there was nothing left to discover. And this was in the 1800s, or 1700s. I mean, look at what we've discovered since then. There was one philosopher who took his own life because of math, because he had figured out these math equations that explained what he needed to know, and he thought there was nothing left to know. Well, math is still explaining things. It's like the guy said, maybe more people probably killed themselves over being bad at math than being good at math, but and how ironic that I watched an episode of Futurama the other day, and I don't know if you ever watched that show, but the professor was doing these math equations. He figured out the answer to life, and he's like, there's nothing else left to discover. And he was miserable. He's just like, life is over. There's nothing worth living for. So there's always more to discover. And the reason why I brought that up about the history is because the people who thought that it was all over at that time, there's large groups who killed themselves because they think that the world's going to end. And Lobo made a great video about this the other day, about how many times the world has really ended. At the end of every century, at the beginning of every century, halfway through every century, at least a dozen times in this last century, probably 24 times, the world was supposed to end. And it's because people feel like we're at our end, like we're at the end of our rope, we're done. Look at what we've created. But they thought the same thing 100 years ago and 500 years ago and in the times of the Crusades. And I think that the only difference, real big difference between now and then, is that now we have things that could literally destroy us overnight. And what I mean is nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, radiation poisoning. I mean, we have a lot of different things that could kill us. But it doesn't mean they all will. It means that maybe we'll go through another bottleneck. Maybe something happens in the world and all the nuclear reactors end up melting down because there's nothing we can do because we've lost too many people. And this is my fear, something like that. Either a major virus or a nuclear meltdown everywhere. So what then? Everybody dies off and a few people will mutate and learn to adapt to the radiation and find a solution because they have no choice as to how to clean it up, and the rest of society will move forward through the bottleneck into the next era. In other words, I don't see humanity coming to an end anytime soon. Although a couple years ago I did. I really felt that we were done for. And I realized after enough research that was due to my own perspective on how overwhelming life can be. I stepped back for a minute, realized that the only experience we have is our own life. And that's not enough to base an end of the world, you know. But people will continue to find scripture and quotes and prophecies that confirm what they believe. And if I could leave on a note, the reason why I'm so opposed to this idea of the end of times is because when people start talking like that, they become defeatists, meaning that they've given up on the day-to-day life because they believe that it's all going to be shit anyway. And that to me is the ultimate sin. That's ignorance. That's not making an effort out of, oh well, the whole world's going to shit anyway. It's a lack of effort and laziness. A good person will fight to the end. You know, you'll fight for your just cause. Just like a soldier will fight for his country, you gotta be a soldier for the world. And you have to fight injustice and evil, and you can't close your eyes to it. Even if you think that it's all gonna be over, that the society's gonna destroy itself, at least be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So, namaste to everyone. Namaste. I'm gonna get up and get some work done. Peace and love.